Hi there, welcome back to Owl Dragon Adventures. I'm Scott Kegler.
And I'm Rob McPherson.
And today we're here to review a new arrival board game for us, and that is The Adventures of Robbin Hood by KOSMOS Games. So let's check it out.
So The Adventures of Robbin Hood caught me immediately just because I'm a huge Robbin Hood buff. I absolutely love the character, love all the stories. So as soon as I saw there was a board game coming out about The Adventures of Robbin Hood, I had to scoop it up. It's been on pre-order for about 6 months now. Finally got my copy just about 2 weeks ago. And I dove right in. I couldn't even wait to do an unboxing on the channel. I did one on our TikTok. I think that we've got one up on the TikTok.
I think so.
And I just dove right in solo, just playing all the characters at once. So this game is a narrative storytelling game. It's got a very slight aspect of bag building to it, although that's kind of stretching the term of bag building, I think. But you draw your turn order and all combat out of a bag that you put chits into for various reasons throughout the game. Very heavily narrative, as I was saying. In fact, it comes with a hardcover book that it's like a pick your path, where as you see different things on the game board, it tells you what page to go to. And from there, you see what happens next in the story and what changes on the board. There's a lot of unique properties about this game that I'm really enjoying, and I really hope that KOSMOS goes ahead and continues this on to various other storylines and properties.
So I mean, I diving into like the gameplay for starters for me, it had less time than you've had with the game, right. But like I think it's interesting. I do think that, and I don't mean that in a negative. That's interesting. I do think it is interesting mechanics for how there are reveals of locations and that there is a change to the board presence. So in some of the gameplay, this isn't really a spoiler, but where some games you'd have to move tokens or miniatures on and off the board, you actually have locations that you, like Carol, just like, so there's a guard on one side and then there's a blank on the other side as you're revealing when a guard was or was not there. So as you're looking at the map, you end up with this kind of nice puzzle board, as Rob was pointing out, to look at. So it's very pretty in that way.
The gameplay for me is, I've never played a game like this before. That's not to say that a game like it doesn't exist out there, but it really draws upon some wargaming roots in terms of your movement is measured. It's not like hexes or squares. You've got these little tokens that determines how far you can move, and you can kind of push it further and move even further if you so choose. And so that kind of determines where you can get to on the board in a given turn.
Yeah, I think a lot of wargamers might find similarity in like how some of that works. I know sometimes you have, so many measuring.
As soon as I broke it out and I took out one of these pieces, Scott was like, "Oh, it's kind of like X-Wing."
Yeah, like any kind of game like that. So that's an interesting way to do movement. It gives some, it's a variation of this type of game, what I would have come to expect from it. So overall, I enjoyed the gameplay. For me, it's an interesting dynamic. It has a very large table presence, surprisingly.
It absolutely does.
That might be a segue, but for me, gameplay. So I enjoyed the gameplay of it. I think it's an enjoyable game.
Personally, I've been through 3 of the quests now. I am stuck on the 4th quest, but so for me, I've had a little bit more experience with it as it evolves and kind of gets a little bit more complex. I'm going to give it a high on gameplay personally. I hesitate to say that it's my favorite of gameplays because it's just so different from anything that I've played. I don't think I can compare it to any of the other style games that we've played in terms of just pure style. But it's definitely a high for me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, actually, the only reason why it's medium because when I've played other games that are kind of like pick your path kind of adventures, I think some are a little bit more like faster for me. So but that said, it's very rich. So I get that. Like I understand the difference there. Versus like you flip a card, you go to the next card, or you go to the next path.
Right.
In a pick your path game. This one is, this is the book of like the adventures, and it's like, and this isn't like an empty like token holder. This is an actual book that comes with the game. So it is very rich for gameplay. So if you are narrative driven, I think it's a strength of the game. It is something to know when you're getting into it.
So moving on next to accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
So accessibility of this game, they were very smart. They knew that it was a unique style. So they did the classic thing where there's a pamphlet where it says, do not open the rule book, do not open the instructions, play off this pamphlet first. And the first quest is literally just step by step introducing you to the rules, which can make it seem more reliant on the book than it is in later gameplay, because in the first game, you're definitely picking up that book every single step of the way. And so when I was first playing, I was like, okay, this is going to get a little tedious. But after the first quest, that goes away. You only have to pick it up for some brief references. And points.
I would give it like it's very strong in that aspect for me too. It's very high that it has a focus on a tutorial-like mission. If you're an experienced gamer, you might be kind of like wanting to gallop past some of it because you're like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing here. Yep. But as an entry to the game, like that's why it's high accessibility, because it has that tutorial. As Rob was pointing out, that you can go through that first thing, and even like the first kind of like go through in the book is very tutorial focused, and as you start to see as you're picking up speed as you would play through multiple quest adventures, what have you.
Yeah. So moving on next to gameplay accessibility.
Design.
Thank you. I'll remember them eventually.
Well, eventually, this is, we're just starting off.
So, so the design for it. So design overall, and this is, I had to be careful not to dip into quality, but design overall, I'm going to give it a high for a couple reasons. Can you hand me the book?
Yeah.
So the book itself, as Scott pointed out, it's a tome. It's really well bound. That's something we've mentioned before as we're talking about things, is that
with pick your path games,
is that sometimes the bindings can get broken, and I played this quite a bit, and I mean it's bound like a real book.
And I think like when we say like real
quality,
books,
sorry.
no, it's important to point out because it's a nice design. I mean, it looks just like from an art style, like it looks like you would mistake that as a copy of a book of Robbin Hood or something like that. For me, it's like for design, I really like the map. Again, I know we talked about how the pieces come off. That ends up being a very unique feel to it, look to it. We're kind of on the teetering between design and quality for me right now, but I also like that it's not a folder. It is they're actually like puzzle pieces. It went off. Yeah.
So they pop apart and then they pop back together when you want to play.
Yeah, because for a map this size, like it's only a matter of time if it's a game you love and you play. Well, it's not just terrifying to unfold them, but it's only a matter of time before you break one of the folds there, and then you basically end up with a version of this that you just have to put together. Right. But so I really like that. And from a design, I like, and this is a thing for me, is that they take the time to have every wooden meeple, even like these measuring ones, are all cut to each character. So you can't mistake. This is Maid Marian. You can't mistake her miniature for Robin, or like another good example is Little John is distinctly different than the other character. So if you're picking up which one is the movement token, they have very different cuts. And I just like that from a design aspect.
And you could in the more advanced gameplay, you get a bow, and the rangefinder for the bow is this little arrow, which is cool. I would say spoiler, but I mean it's a Robbin Hood game. Come on.
Yeah, if you didn't want to have bow and arrow, play a different game.
Wrong genre. The artwork, I absolutely love it. It was described in a review I was reading. I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly where, but it's a realistic but not dark tone, and I think that's a really great way to put it, because it's got that same like brush strokes that you would expect to see in a dark kind of tone, but it doesn't look like grim and dark and gloomy in that very gritty feel.
It's a relative realism. You're definitely not in a fantasy. I mean, I know it's literary fiction, but it doesn't have in a gaming world full of fantasy kind of games like this. It's refreshing. It has a storybook quality to it without being fantastic.
So the design for me is going to be a high.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's everything I've seen so far in the design of the game, I really appreciate, and everything makes sense from a design standpoint. There's no confusing iconography. Everything just kind of, like I said, as an experienced gamer, as we were trucking through it, I was no questions. It was like, I understand everything, and that is where things can break down in design for me. So that high as well.
So quality. So we started to talk about a few things. So I'll start with the highs from quality, which is, as we mentioned before, the meeple designs. They're all beautifully woodcut. They feel sturdy, even with these tails that are coming off. They don't feel like I'm going to break them.
Yeah.
They put a lot of time and effort into making sure the board fits together nicely. All these pieces fit into the board beautifully. My only ding on quality is the gameplay is very reliant on you pulling these pieces up out and putting them back in.
Yeah,
and the cardboard is already starting to fray after about probably 5 hours of gameplay for me. And I will give them a slight nod on this one, or a good nod on this one, because KOSMOS has recognized the problem, and they say for second printing, they're planning on upgrading their cardboard they use. So we'll see how that works out. But I definitely see that after I get a good game play through of this game, that I'm going to see some severe wear and tear.
Yeah, and because of the narrative nature of it, like I could see some players who really enjoy it. You obviously really enjoy it. I enjoyed it definitely. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as you did, but
as you mentioned, though, you're not a huge Robbin Hood.
Not a huge Robbin Hood fan, but like I could see the mechanics working really well for other stories, as you had said.
Sure.
We had talked about, like, I think if you really wanted to, for KOSMOS, that they wanted to take it to the next level, is you could have deluxe copies of these games with either additional, replacing some of this with either wood or acrylics or plastic. I think could make a very big difference.
Yeah, make the cardboard double thickness.
Yeah.
So that you can get the acrylic things to pop that. That'd be amazing. I would pay for that.
I mean, yeah, exactly. It's the price point. It's like I have games like that I enjoy that, like, you double the price point of the game, but it's if you enjoy it, I can see the value of it. But I agree, like, yeah, these are not going to last this way.
Agreed. So I'm excited to see what they come out with the second printing. I doubt I might buy myself a copy if I destroy this one and I want to keep going. But I'm sure I'll see online when the second printing comes out what the reviews on that are. So I'm going to give this one I'm going to give it a mid. It's a mid to high because it's only one small thing, but it's used so much that it does have an impact.
Yeah. It's like low to mid for me to the same reasons. Yep. It's hard to ding it too much for that part of it. I know it's a big part of the game, but the rest of the components are pretty quality.
Right.
And then last is value.
Yeah, value. So this is a $60 game. When I first started playing it, I was hesitant of whether or not it was going to be a good value for $60 because I was breezing through these quests really quickly. And then I reached quest 4, which I have now done 3 times and failed all 3 times. So it's going to extend my gameplay. I can't say for certain. I haven't finished the game yet. It's going to be close to me on value, whether or not $60 for it was well spent in terms of the time I spent on it. I think it is. I really do think it is. I am planning on replaying this already. One of the things that's going to determine it for me in the long run is I've heard rumor that there is already an expansion for the German version of this game. So if that comes over to English version and adds gameplay at a relatively good price, that's going to definitely tip over. So I'm going to tentatively mark this as a high on value, but it's really just hitting that high point, and it's only because of the fact that the challenge has gotten enough for me at this point where it's slowing me down. So it's borderline. It's
tough to score games like this right now for me in value in the pandemic, just simply because, yes, it's $60, but 2 years ago it may have been a $45 game. Sure. And that might have made more sense. So it's hard to compare this to like something that retail like right now, like Lost Friends of Arnak would be $60. So it's a ton of game. But this is, for right now, I think it would probably be mid still for me on that. Just, again, initial reactions to it for value, how much you get out of it. But
I can't say, I can't see this game costing any less for KOSMOS, though. Like, they have hit the price point of what components they give you.
Yeah, I mean, there's the book.
There's no way they could afford to make these meeples, that book, the pop-out board for any less. That being said, I hope that the gameplay time makes it worth it.
Yeah, for what you'll get out of it.
Because they can make a beautiful game that spends the money wisely, but if it's only going to last 2 hours, it's only a 2-hour game for that money. So that's the only reason that I'm hesitant. I think that's where you're coming from too.
Well, I mean, and it's a lot of it too is like theme. I think like if they get the right themes for different individuals, like I think like to your point, you're gonna spend the time in the theme you like. I think the mechanics work for it, particularly for a pick your path kind of adventure game. I could see there being a lot of potential in a series of these. Yes. I think it's a relatively unique enough gameplay experience where they should consider other stories of the game.
I mean, just other literature alone, I think would make a great value or great audience.
Yeah.
But even just kind of going more generic, like you mentioned, having a Western version of this of some sort, that could be a lot of fun. Just kind of a little bit more open worldy, not necessarily a very direct path, but using the same mechanics, the flipping mechanics. I think there's a huge amount of potential.
Absolutely. So I enjoyed it. It was a good experience. I think overall for me, like I don't want to give it an official score right now because I haven't played it enough, but where did you end up landing on it?
So I'm going to end up at a 4.5 right now out of 5, and that's because the quality, again, that ding for me, it's enough, and also I'm not positive that the time spent will be there. So between those two things, it's going to knock me down a half point. But that being said, it's a really strong 4.5 for me. Because the amount of fun I'm having, this one comes off my shelf more than anything else at home right now. This starts to come out even when I'm in the mood for something like when I normally toss out Ratcatcher. This comes out right now.
Okay, excellent.
So I really enjoy it. So yeah, that was The Adventures of Robbin Hood by KOSMOS Games.
Designed by Michael Menzel. So thank you for joining us here today, and we wish you good luck on your next board game adventure.
And thank you for joining us on ours. As always, you can find the links to our socials down below in the description and a link to where you can find The Adventures of Robbin Hood.